What if I told you the answer to a sustainable career in music lay in technology that could practically be described as Stone Age? Stick with me on this one. To date, there have been 5 eras of purchasing music: vinyl, cassettes, CD, the digital download, and finally streaming, now the dominant force in how we listen and engage with music. We have enthusiastically traded in ownership for access, all in the name of convenience. Don't get me wrong, there is much gained from access. The entire world's catalogue of music at your fingertips is pretty cool. But this access, somehow counterintuitively, also means a narrowing of experience. And I'm not the first person to feel a lack of connection with new releases compared to the old. And what was designed as a way of combating music being devalued through piracy has pretty much done exactly what it was trying to stop. We now find our experience of music is tied up with a world of adverts, multiple subscriptions, membership tiers, and personalized algorithms that turn out to not actually be that personalized. Because whether you wanted to listen to Drake or not, sooner or later, you will be served up a slice of champagne puppy because Spotify wants you to. And let's not forget about those year-on-year price hikes. How much are you prepared to pay year on year to have access to things you do not own and that can be taken away from you at a moment's notice? Case in point, Deezer just removed 25 million tracks from its service, saying they wanted to improve artist and user experience by filtering out tracks by fake artists, tracks with little to no streaming history, and songs with low sonic quality, whatever that might be. So where does that leave us? And what does this have to do with cassettes, Mary? Well, it's what we can learn from their past and their present to imagine a better future. Cassette tapes were the original peer-to-peer, from me to you. They were low cost. You could carry them with you, and you could use and reuse them. In his book, High Bias, A Distorted History of the Cassette Tape, Mark Masters writes, tapes meant freedom to create, to invent, to connect. And as more musicians trial the direct-to-consumer model, they're making a comeback, although some purists will say they never really went away. Of course, cassettes will never be as popular as they once were in the 80s. It's never going to be a mass market pursuit. I think they currently account for less than 1% of music sales in the UK, for instance. But physical is on the up again. And if you're content to make a living rather than a fortune, sometimes 1% of the market is all you need. The IFPI Global Music Report 2024, State of the Nation, says, for a third consecutive year, physical revenues rose with an upswing of 13.4% in 2023, a marked increase on the prior year's growth of 3.8%. Driven by strong gains in CD revenue and the continued expansion of interest in vinyl, physical formats were worth $5.1 billion in 2023 and accounted for 17.8% of the total global market, up from 17.3% in 2022. Let's be real, the format is far from perfect.
How is that even physically possible?
And many people born from 1990 onwards will probably be horrified by tape hiss, or having to wear wired headphones. But they're cheap, they're durable, and they still look and feel great. Their resurgence shows us what's missing from modern music: connection, a sense of anticipation, delayed gratification, scarcity, and above all, fun. Tapes have helped birth genres like thrash metal, hip-hop, punk and underground, or black metal, all initially ignored by the mainstream, so they chose to do it themselves. In Cassette, a documentary mixtape, Black Flag frontman Henry Rollins said, "Nowadays, you're listening to something served to you from some cloud, something out in the ether, but you can't touch it. But what stays the same is analog. It always sounds good to the ear, and it's what's left of humanity meeting music." Interviewed in the same film, Anna Jane Grossman, the author of Obsolete, says, "I think objects become obsolete when we have figured out what we consider better ways of doing something. But what is better? We live in a time where things are becoming obsolete faster than perhaps ever before. There's always a newer, better version. Not so many years ago, the value of something was how it was going to hold up against the clock. The compact cassette was first released to the public in 1963. Its invention is credited to Lou Ottens, a Dutch engineer who worked at Philips and who also helped invent the CD. The idea was the result of the impracticality of reel-to-reel for the average person. Ottens said, "Yesterday I was fiddling with that damn reel-to-reel. We have to think of something else. We must make it more compact, which you can carry around easily, and the tape spools have to be in the cassette." His team set to work with his colleagues joking that the cassette was born from the clumsiness of a very clever man. Ottens' other stroke of genius was in refusing Philips' request to patent the design. Anyone who wants to make it can, but we demand a certain quality and a standard. One device, one standard, one music carrier. Mass adoption followed. Lou Ottens said, "We expected it to be a success, but not a revolution." He is not sentimental about the cassette. He said that those who still use it are just nostalgic for a different era, because they certainly aren't doing it for the sound quality. He also said, "It's a rather irrational activity." Irrational it may be, but there are compelling reasons to reconsider the cassette. If you're making music, maybe in a certain niche genre, maybe something broader, it's a perfectly valid and reasonable way of releasing your work. They're a low-cost memento that allows you to support an artist. They're often beautifully designed with great artwork, liner notes. These days, they're often packaged with a high-quality digital download too. You could easily sell a few tapes on Bandcamp or through your own website and make more than thousands of streams. And your music is yours alone, and you don't have a shady tech company analysing every aspect of your listening habits in order to sell you things. Quick maths, fewer than 1,000 streams on Spotify now equals zero, nothing. And it's actually minus nothing because you paid to get it on Spotify in the first place. If you're making your own cassette, you could go for the cheapest and most DIY option, buying a second-hand deck and dubbing your own album over blank tapes. If you want something really special, you could record a unique performance on each tape, or you can go to a tape duplication service and place an order. Quantities range from as low as 25 copies. Obviously, prices vary based on the spec you choose, but let's just call it $3 a copy. For 50 copies, that's $150. If you sell for $10 plus postage on your website or social media channels, then you probably only need to sell 20 or so to break even on the cost of the physical production. And let's just, for this example, imagine you self-produced your record, and then if you sell the other 30, you might end up with $200 or $300 profit. $300 equals just over 88,000 streams on Spotify. What's more realistic for you? And most importantly, your listeners have a connection with you. It will exist on their shelf in their line of sight to be revisited and valued. This is something that you made, sent directly to them, peer to peer. That's community building. That's a true fan. This is a quote from Ian Taylor, a musician and academic, again from Mark Masters' book. Participants emphasized the cassette as a convenient and cheap way of catering for their desire for a physical thing. The majority of them highlighted that even though they were aware that they could access the same music online for free, the purchasing and ownership of a certain cassette is important as a means of putting money in the hands of the artist and the labels you enjoy. It becomes a symbolic token of your involvement with a scene as a person who doesn't merely observe or listen, but instead is an active participant in independent music, who actively contributes to the production of culture. There are many tape labels out there run by passionate small business owners with a DIY punk ethos. They aren't doing it for the money, but for the genuine love and desire to contribute to the culture. We could learn a lot from them. All it takes is a change of mindset. I've never released a tape and have dreamt of having my own. So as an experiment, I'm launching a pre-order For the cassette version of Super Sexy Heartbreak, there is a link in the description below. I'll also have them and some other merch available on my UK tour. Thank you so much for listening to these thoughts. I hope you found it sparked something in you. If you're interested in learning more, I really, really, really recommend Mark Masters' book, High Bias, The Distorted History of the Cassette Tape, and Cassette, a documentary mixtape directed by Zach Taylor. But as ever, I will be seeing you here again very, very soon. Now I'm going to go and listen to this tape that was sent to me by a wonderful member of my 21st century music community. Okay.